Hello and welcome back, everybody, to this week's episode. We are really thrilled to get this week's episode out to you because we have the wonderful James Bartrop of Shadow Safe here joining us, as you well know from the introduction. And this is really special. This is a very special episode for us. It's very close to our heart because Ness and I have written a book all about healthy hustle. We are sick of the old school, hardcore, push, 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 push till you drop ways of working. And yet, we appreciate that actually we do need a bit of hustle. We do need a bit of hustle to succeed in business. But the way that we so often do it just doesn't work. And this is what healthy hustle is. It's about knowing that balance of when to push, knowing that balance of when to pull back. So we still have tenacity, drive, determination, and we can do it in a way where we actually have time to enjoy life with our family. So when we were writing the book, when we think about examples of healthy hustle, it was an absolute no-brainer to get into the conversation with James, who we've been working with for a number of years. Because watching his, dare I say, journey to healthy hustle from the hardcore old school narrative that we want to move away from to where he is today in his business is nothing short of inspiring. So James, welcome. Thank you for joining us. And thank you also for sharing your story so openly and your experiences to the point that you're actually the opening story in the book. You're the hero of the opening of the book. Yay!
Thank you so much, Nikki and Ness. For me, it's such an honor to be not only part of this podcast today, but also to be have a pretty decent mention in your new book, and to be able to read that before or any other eyes have had the chance to read that. Man, it was really special.
That's awesome. And it's a testament to the work that you've done, to you showing up for yourself, for your family. I remember one of our very, very first conversations that we had was around you saying, I want my life back. I want to be able to have dinner at the table with my family and not feel like someone's waiting around the corner for the next thing with my phone on the table, with just always being needed. So I want to kick off by asking you, think back to those early days of business and even beyond when we first met. What was your definition of success in those early days of business?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Uh, it's embarrassing for me to say this, but it was succeed at all costs. And the way that I defined that was, and I made excuses about it as well. I said, my family need me to be the breadwinner. They need me to work hard so that I can provide for them. I made all sorts of reasons as to why it was okay to work the way that I was, which was really unhealthy in a lot of ways. My physical health was suffering. I wasn't exercising. I was behind my desk all the time. As you alluded to, I had the phone sitting next to me at the dinner table, waiting for that ding to go off. I had this constant state of anxiousness because I was wondering what was the next thing that was going to happen that would need my attention. And I remember vividly, and it was quite a fork in the road for me, where I'd pick the kids up from school and they'd say, Dad, can we just have a day where you don't have to make phone calls on the way home? And for me, that was a moment where I was like, oh my goodness, I need to change something.
Wow. Children are great, aren't they?
Mm.
They are just like, let's punch you in the middle of the eyes and give you some
Hmm.
feedback right here, right now. So was
And
that you go?
it's good what you said there. They give you the unfiltered, the
Mm,
they're not considering the words that are coming out of their mouth in a way that we might reframe them as adults. They
mm,
just give you the version that they see, which is can be quite hurtful. And it's not
mm.
their fault that they give it to you that way. It's what they see, and it's how they interpret what they see.
That's right. And I think that sometimes we go into justification, like all the reasons you had in
Mm.
your mind around why you need to work hard probably would have come to the forefront first. And
Absolutely.
then it's the sitting back later on thinking about that and thinking about the impact you're
Mm.
having on them and what they're seeing about you that starts to create that shift in mindset. So would you say then that was one of, or the major change?
It was only one of, I would
Mm.
say. And I would even probably go as far as saying that the way in which I reacted to them in that moment was probably not great either.
Right.
I probably said things like, "You don't understand. You don't know how much is on my shoulders as far as why I'm working the way that I am."
Yeah.
So a
This is
little
all
bit,
for you.
yeah, that's right.
You
This is for
ungrateful
your
little
private,
things.
this is your private school fees as to why I'm, yeah.
All
This
the
is why you have a
things.
roof over your head. All those things
Mm.
that you can make excuses about really easily. And I think back to when I first started my business, I didn't start my business to be a slave to it. I didn't start my business so that it took and consumed all my time. That's not why I did it. I did it for them so that I had the freedom or flexibility to be able to go to their sport event, to be able to be a part of a reward ceremony that they had at school. That was why I did it fundamentally, and I'd moved so far away from the actual reason for why I started my business.
Yeah, wow. And so what would you say now has shifted in your definition of success?
Really good question. I think my whole frame has changed around why I'm in business now. Reframing to be not about me is probably the first thing. It's not about my success. It's not about what I've built. I think for a long time, and this is something Nikki helped me work on considerably. And there was some teary coaching sessions where we actually peeled the layers of the onion back to actually work out what the core of the issue is. I think for a long time I was trying to prove myself to my dad in particular. I saw the definition of success from his perspective, and that was that he would leave very early in the morning. He'd get home very late in the evening. Dinner'd be prepared for him, ready on the table, and he'd just roll straight in and be at the dinner table. I thought that's what success looked like. I thought that part of the success was going to work with Dad on a Saturday because he had to do a little bit more, and we'd play hide and seek in his office building while he would find me. But as I learnt later, he was actually working and giving me the satisfaction of thinking that I was really hard to find.
Oh, no. Kind of clever.
So for me now, I've had to reframe what success looks like. And again, between the two of you, you've said things like, I remember saying to Nikki, I need to put the oxygen mask on the kids first. I'm happy to sacrifice myself for them. But the reality is that that's not what they want. They want me to be around. They want me to be healthy. They want me to spend time with them, to enjoy life with them. So I'd got a lot of things around the wrong way, and it was hard for me to come to grips with the fact that I needed to put my oxygen mask on first, and I needed to look after myself first. So I would say that's the big change, is that I now put my oxygen mask on first so that I can then help them and be with them in a much more healthy manner than I was previously.
Mm.
Oh, we both just
We're both
just
just
so much of
questions
yes.
on the tip of the tongue. I wanted to ask, and I think I do know the answer to this, but was there a cost financially for you making that shift in the business?
Was there a cost? I would say yes and no. The yes component would be that if I was working 24/7, the obvious outcome would be that I would have a bigger business today. So yes, there's a cost there. But I think about it in a different way, that the cost is much greater if I didn't make a change. Consider my kids growing up and not knowing who I am. Consider my relationship with my wife. If I don't invest in my kids and in my wife and our relationships, then I could turn around at some point and they would be justified to say, I don't know who you are.
Yeah.
And want to go in separate directions.
Thank you for sharing. And there's a lot that you're sharing as well that isn't in the book, so it's really incredible to go that layer deeper as well around really what that definition of success is. because the whole premise of this healthy hustle is that the thing that has gotten us to the unhealthy hustle, it's our beliefs, it's our belief systems. And where did they come from? It does come from stories of our parents or the world and the world around us. And I'm sure, I know that there's people that are listening and watching that would resonate so much with what you've said. And I really, really applaud you for making that change for your kids, the role model that they see, how they will, you know, it's breaking cycles. Such a huge thing about everything that Ness and I do is about how do we break cycles, which, you know, our parents and the generations before, we can say they were doing the best that they did with what they had.
Yes.
But we can do different. We can take the baton and make another little improvement. And then our kids are going to do the same, or the kids of this generation. So that definition of success being, I put my oxygen mask on first to therefore be there for a better partner, for a better parent, for a better business owner, a better boss, a better leader. You know, we talk in the book about the importance of taking holidays and actually switching off, which is something you do now.
Yeah,
we celebrate so much. So, and also the people around you that give you that unfiltered truth. So kids are a great way to do that. And even if you don't have kids, there's other people, hopefully in your life that will give you that unfiltered truth, siblings, partners. And if they don't, guess who's giving it to you now? The three of us.
That's
to
right.
those of you that are listening, that are in this conversation right now, we are giving you this unfiltered truth. So when we look at this kind of, is there anything else that you want to add to that? That was just a little summary, really.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Probably the only thing I want to add to that is that I spent too much attention analyzing other businesses that would like mine and thinking, man, I want that. How did they do that? Let me work harder so I can achieve that. And then when I actually started to connect with those business owners on a human level, I found that not everything was perfect in their business. Not everything was as it looked from the outside looking in. And so there was a bit of reassurance there that my business doesn't have to be perfect either. The business that I'm looking at from the outside in, it has also got its own faults that it's dealing with. And in fact, I like my faults because they're what I'm used to versus what they're dealing with. I don't want what they're dealing with. So that was a bit of an awareness piece that I had to come to grips with, that I didn't need to keep up with the Joneses because maybe the Joneses don't really have what I want.
It's so true. It's like the people that have the big house, the car, but everything is on loan. Like they don't own anything and it looks all great from the outside, but what's really going on? And another thing that I think really worthwhile bringing into this conversation is around, you know, I know that in just before the time that we started working, again, you were on that trajectory of growth, but you consciously chose to pause, even from a revenue generating, business building avenue, to actually readjust and reset.
Yes.
And what that actually then from the outside and, you know, looking in and working with you, is it allowed you then to actually have some pretty rapid growth over the last, you know, 4 or 5 years. And there's this whole thing around sometimes we need to slow down to speed up. So when you talked about the cost, there could have been a financial cost, probably not a profit in the way of profit, maybe in terms of looking amazing on the outside, but who you are as you progress and the healthy, happy human you are. Also, though, from a profit point of view, from the systems and structure that's set up, that was really something that struck me as well about how you are and were open to kind of, slowing down to be able to speed up. And you did get that exponential growth in a better way. Is there anything, any kind of tips that or insights around that you think would be worth sharing with our audience?
Absolutely. And I really like that you brought that point up because it makes me think that all business is not good business. So I had to stop. I had to redefine what my ideal client looked like. I had to create some business rules around what we were happy to accept. Let me say it like that. As far as behaviors are concerned, as far as how we thought the relationship should operate, so that it's beneficial for both parties. And by doing that, it meant that I reassessed what our actual offering was before just bringing new business on that might contribute to the problem rather than contribute to the solution. So stopping and reassessing where I was at, trying to understand, is the profit not there because there's not enough work, or is it not there because we're not selling our products appropriately?
Because I would imagine that if your definition of success was work hard, make money, and then you stop and pause, there'd be some layers of fear coming up around everything I know up until now that's got me this level of success. If I change that, what happens if I lose it?
Yes.
Did that
And
go on for you?
absolutely. But again, I had to come back to the fact that not all business was good business. I was growing something that was just getting bigger and busier.
Yeah.
That's what I was growing. I wanted to be able to grow in a more smart way. And so stopping and doing that reassessment piece was a critical part. Otherwise, I was just going to become busier. And sure, maybe I'd have a bigger team, but we'd all be busy being busy rather than actually providing good value to our clients. Something that I think is important to say is that in the early days, we took on anything from anyone. And I don't think that that's necessarily a bad thing. I think that when you're first starting out in business, doing anything for anyone can be quite helpful, but try not to do that forever because it probably won't satisfy you and satisfy what you're trying to achieve out of the business.
That sounds like that's the hustle piece, right? We've got to hustle to build momentum to get it going. But
Correct.
if we continue on the trajectory of hustling, we forget to stop to be healthy.
Yeah,
So
that's right.
what would some of the changes that you made that you can say around the slowing down that are integral to the success of your business now that you perhaps didn't have in your thought process prior to this pause button?
So the pause button helped us make sure that our systems and processes were well defined. And still, as I grow, we still find systems and processes that need to be improved. So for me, it's that canny approach, continual and never-ending improvement. The business is never going to be perfect, but something worthy of noting as well is I'm a bit of a perfectionist, so I had to overcome the idea that done is better than perfect. These are all things that I've heard you say, by the way. So for me to repeat them back to you feels really odd. So stopping and realizing that getting that new product out the door, even though it might not have all the polish put on it, that was okay, because the fundamental components of that product were right, the financial components were right, and the value that it provided to the clients was right. And often it was just, the proposal that I'm sending to that client's not quite pretty enough. It was more often things like that that were not actually part of the value that I was trying to deliver.
Who would have thought, James, you would be on a podcast all these years later saying done is better than perfect?
I know. Me 5 years ago would have struggled to say anything like that.
Yes.
You'd be like,
yes.
what? My brain doesn't compute this.
No,
Yeah.
no. Probably something else that I went through around that same time was, are these types of clients right for us? And are we right for them? It's somewhere around the 2018, 2019 period, we went through our whole client database and we had cafes and restaurants and gyms and those sorts of businesses in our client list. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with those clients. We just weren't right for them and they weren't right for us. And wind the clock forward to COVID, having those clients as a big percentage of our business would have been really quite detrimental.
Yeah, wow.
And also, I remember you talking about this, even setting up the business with the systems and structure to serve those types of clients. They need support after hours, on weekends. And your particular business, that was not the kind of business that you wanted to set up. I mean, you still support your clients, outside of normal working hours, but I think the level of support that they needed, correct me if I'm wrong.
100%.
So the conscious decision to go, actually, what is the future vision that I have of my business? What is my personal vision, i.e., I want to be the kind of parent that is at home with their kids, picking the kids up from school, going to the sporting events. how does my business as a vehicle meet these needs? Is that something that I want? So this is also something, it's really important to look at. If you, in this conversation with us, listening and watching, what is your business vision and what is your personal vision, and how do the two meet? Because if the two don't connect with each other, there's always going to be a misalignment and you're going to fall into the unhealthy hustle. So for you, James, even looking at these types of clients, what is their need? Can I deliver that and still fit in with the business and personal vision? Making the decision actually no, which would have, I imagine, been pretty tough and a whole process. But then, of course, not only did you build the business of I assume of your dreams. We'll ask you that question in a moment, but making the tough decisions and asking the tough questions and making sure that is this the future business I want to build?
I really like what you just said there. The way that we restructured the business made me really value the component of asking good questions of the client as well, because I think that for everyone who is in business, you need to make sure that they're right for you as well, as much as we're trying to prove that we're right for them. I've had to become more comfortable with saying no to people when the fit isn't quite right. We've done that recently where as a cybersecurity firm, there's certain things that every business must be doing in order to protect their business. And a really quick way for us to understand how much they value the service and the solution that we're bringing to their business comes down to price. If they're wanting to remove certain components of the solution that we're trying to bring to them, then it's often an early warning sign that maybe there's going to be further issues down the track where they consider the value of your offering. So getting that right and making sure that, sure, we do provide after-hours support, but based on the types of clients that we work with, there's very few that operate outside of business hours. And because we ensure and we do that everything that we can to put the right products in place for them, there's very few things that happen outside of business hours that hinder them from being able to continue to operate.
And the important thing about that as well is that there's other businesses that can take care of them better, that
100%.
are set up, that are, in this example, taking care of restaurants and hospitality, etc. They're set up for that. So by freeing those clients that don't fit the ideal way that you can serve them, for all of us, it's like a relationship. We're freeing them to find a better fit for them. So sometimes it can be really hard when we start to practice no, and a big part of Healthy Hustle is saying no. This is one example of how. And if you kind of feel a little bit bad, if you're listening like, oh, I don't know how, just think you're freeing them so that someone can take care of them better, and talking about that qualifying process. So really thinking, what is it for you that is James's version of, okay, so I'm balking at the price, or I'm asking questions around this. What's your process early on where you're qualifying them, where you start to go, I just know that this isn't going to be the right fit for either of us. So I'm going to set them free and let them find someone that will actually better serve them. And that frees me up to find my ideal clients. Yeah.
Probably the other positive side of making that decision to not have a whole lot of clients that need support out of hours is the team and the impact on the team. As you're aware, I've not built a team that is 24/7. We're not geared to that sort of business, and nor do we need to be based on the types of clients that we deal with. I didn't want to make that phone call on a Saturday to say, hey, Carlos, hey, Leo, hey, Damien, hey, Ryan, can you go out and solve this problem for a client? I wanted them to have a life too, where they know that come knock-off time, for 99% of the time, that means knock-off. There's very few moments where they're actually disturbed in their own personal time.
It's interesting you raise that, because you talk about your development over the years and the way you've shifted your belief system and stepped into this concept of healthy hustle, what that means for you. I'm curious for you to reflect on you as a leader and what you think has changed since, perhaps when you had that belief around success when you started your business, as you were growing a team, to where you sit with your influence as a leader now.
That's a really good question. And again, I'm a little bit embarrassed to share this bit of information with you. You both know how I'm going to respond to this, I think. And that is that as the business owner, I expected everyone else to work as hard as me. That was something that I struggled with for a very long time, and it affected the way that I even communicated with the team. That upset them because honestly, my expectations of them was much higher than it should have been, because I was expecting them to work as hard as me.
Yeah. Yeah. And so now, what would you say you do differently?
I think as a result of the decisions that we made around the types of clients that we bring on, we've got dual way respect between our clients, as in we respect them and they respect us. I think that's the key part there. And our communication has become a whole lot better as well. I think 99% of problems can be solved with communication, and to be on the front foot with that early on in the engagement, to say, listen, we're able to help you outside of hours, but it's not something that we put a service level agreement around. We're here to help you, but from time to time, that's going to take a little bit longer than maybe you would like it to, because of these reasons and the ones that I've already alluded to. So I think that a key change for me is that I should never expect anyone in my business to work as hard as me. It's my business. I've got the most to gain fundamentally from working hard. But I also have had to learn to work in a healthy hustle type of a way, rather than an unhealthy one that leads me back down the route that I did earlier on in business. And don't get me wrong, from time to time, I do have those late nights. So there's a time where I have to get back in and do things that I don't necessarily want to, but need to be done in order to progress something forward that needs the attention in that moment. But it's not for long periods of time. And I also just have a quick chat to the family and say, hey, listen, I need to exclude myself tonight for sorting this problem out. It's only going to be for one night. Sorry about that. I need to go and sort this out.
Even the communication around that. And I think that's a really important point you make, James, because, that's exactly right. We're not here to say that there's not going to be times where we have to work those extra hours. We have to pull our socks up and do that early start, or even do some work on the weekend or whatever that might be. But it's temporary. It's not the habit. It's not the pattern. There's intention behind it. There's communications. It's communication to the people around us. It's like when we talk in the book about entrepreneurial addiction, and looking at the 6 signs, which we have another podcast episode on. We might pop that in here and get the book and have a read, and you'll find out even more in there. But it's that is one of the key things, is how is it affecting the people around us. I also want to say, observing you and how you've changed as a leader, as your team have grown. One of the big things that you've done is looked at is this understanding around also, like they're not mind readers. Okay. So they're not going to know exactly this level of whatever it is that we're expecting. So the processes that have been implemented, the standards and documentation around clarity of expectations, this is really key, because then you're giving your team, not just you, James, all of us, but everyone that's listening and watching, you're giving your team an opportunity to step up. If we don't have the right systems and structures to be able to set clear expectations of what is expected, what is minimum standard, what is above and beyond, what's celebrated, then if we don't have that, we're not giving our people the chance to actually not just survive in the business, but thrive in the business. So I've seen you implement that really well. And I've also seen your team get more empowered around that.
You make a good point there. And I remember reflect back on an interview that I had with a team member that's no longer with us back in the early days. I still remember saying, here's a little bit to know about me. So I always talk about me as well when I'm interviewing someone, so that they know who they're working with. And I to this day, it rings in my head as not something that I want to continue to repeat to anyone moving forward. And that is that when dealing with me, you're going to get the smallest amount of information possible. And I expect that you're going to know what to do with that and run with it. Because I'm busy, I'm always running around, I'm between appointments constantly. And I think back and think, oh, wow, I was not setting that person up for any level of
No.
success.
Not at all.
I was setting a trap for them. In fact, I hope you can figure me out and sort it out
Yeah.
quickly. Otherwise, it's your fault. That's kind of
Yeah.
how I read between the lines.
Wow.
To actually be able to spend quality time with the team now to do a proper handover is way more valuable, because I was just getting frustrated in that previous version of myself where, why don't they understand what's going on? And the problem was me.
Yeah.
The problem
What's
was
wrong
that
with
I
them?
wasn't exactly. And that's what I thought to myself
Yeah.
initially. But then when it kept happening, I went, I probably need to stop for a second there and think, where's the problem coming? Or what's the common element here?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So James, thank you again for sharing the whole, kind of journey, very briefly in 30 minutes. There's so much more deeper we could go into, but I would love for you to share, what does healthy hustle mean to you?
Great question. Healthy hustle now is a little bit different. I won't say it's completely different to the way that it was. Again, like I alluded to, from time to time, I need to do a little bit extra in order to push the business forward. But what it means now is that I have an early exit on a Monday, on a Wednesday, and on a Friday, where I pick the kids up from school. And from the moment I walk into the door, when I get home, the phone's away. No more distractions for the remainder of the afternoon. I'm now in a position where I can be completely present with the kids to help them with homework or to prepare dinner or whatever the case may be. The other thing that I have started to implement, and I do this at a year at a time, is that I book moments away. So at the beginning of this year, we booked 4 holidays away. It doesn't have to be overseas. It's just a week away that I can push towards, because during the hours that I still have available to me, I work really hard inside the time frame that I have. Saying no to things that shouldn't be things that I do was another important part of that I wasn't overloaded inside those hours doing things that really don't bring the business forward. So number one, having a plan for break time. Having the plan on a page was a key thing. What's the key things that we're aiming for in the next 90 days that will bring about the 12-month goals that we've set? And yeah, being really diligent around those early exits, making sure that I have that time with the kids.
I love that. You're so congruent around
Mm.
what it means to you. And I have seen you put those boundaries in place, and it's really wonderful to hear. What I'd love to ask you as we wrap up is that if somebody's listening and they hear that sort of perhaps the earlier version of James in business that had the hustle at any cost kind of mentality and is getting that reaction, the one that you had when your kids had the comment about, could you please just not be on the phone? So if somebody's in this sort of like, I really want to change, I really want things to get better for me, and I want to find this healthy hustle, whatever that means for me, what would you say as a starting point for them to be able to create that shift? What would be the first step?
The first thing that pops into my head is, again, like I alluded to, what's the common denominator? Are a number of people around me saying, you're always saying you're busy. And maybe they're not inviting you out to social events anymore. Are you feeling disconnected from your friends and your family? Stop and think about, what's the cost? Is building the business and sacrificing everything else, is that important enough for what the business will achieve for you? If not, stop, set out your priorities on what is the most important thing to you, create a plan on how you can achieve that, and then work hard, but work hard with the plan in tow.
That is amazing. That actually gave me a bit of a chill when you said that, because it's what matters most in life, isn't it? That's what we've got to reconnect to. Thank you so much, James. You have been
Pleasure.
amazing. We love working with you, and we have just thoroughly enjoyed having you on our podcast, and we trust that our listeners and watchers have enjoyed it just as much as we have.
Thank you so much for having me. What a
You're
privilege.
welcome.
Thanks,
See you
James.
later.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.
Bye.